In this video, I'm going to show you how to embed a liquid code in a Power Pages site to render Power BI reports or dashboards. Now, there are multiple ways to do that, but I'm going to stick to one specific way. Now, before we understand the liquid code, we need to understand how Power BI works. So, Power BI, when you want to embed a report of Power BI in Power Pages site, you need to first authenticate so that you get the content back from Power BI. Now there are three different ways. One is if you open it to everyone, then it is called as publish to web. So with that, what happens? Authentication has no place in that. A report will be available for everyone to consume. Now, if you want a report to be consumed using your Azure Active Directory credentials, then it is wise to use AAD as authentication type. And there is if you have a Power BI embedded subscription, then Power BI embedded is another option to embed all your Power BI reports. And now this is based on user context. Okay, now this is not related to Azure Active Directory, but this is related to user contacts, and it can be any contact within your organization, and it will follow the role based security. Now, having said that, just look into the general syntax for the reports. How it is like you have a curly brace, percentage sign, percentage, and curly braces, and then there is a keyword Power BI, and then authentication underscore type. And here, either it can be AAD or Power BI embedded. Okay, so in my example, I'd be taking AAD as an authentication type for authenticating Power BI users. Now, the path, this is a syntax. This is like a static thing, https colon slash slash app.powerbi.com slash groups something slash reports something. So here there will be a group ID. Now the group is basically the workspace where the report is located. So our goal is to find out the group ID and then the report ID and then slash report section. So this will render the Power BI report in Power Pages site. Similarly, for dashboards, the syntax is a bit different. It starts with having a group ID and then dashboards. Okay, so you need to put the dashboard ID, and there is an optional additional attribute called a style ID. If you want to render a specific tile from a dashboard, that also you can do it. So group ID, report ID, and dashboard ID. How do we fetch from a Power BI report? Okay, or a dashboard. Now on the top, if you see here, this is actually a Power BI report. Okay, as you see, the report has multiple pages over here. Okay, now when you open the report, if you closely watch the Power BI URL, here you will find the group ID, and here you will find the report ID. Okay, similarly, if you open a dashboard, okay, this is an example of a dashboard. Here you will find a group ID, and here you will find a dashboard ID. So now what we have fetched is we have fetched the group ID, we have fetched the report ID, we have fetched the dashboard ID, and now we can render any report or dashboard. Then there is another way to embed a report with the help of iframe. If we use an iframe tag and if we clearly specify the width, height, the title, and then the source, okay, then we will be able to render that report in an iframe. Now, why this is important is because if we want to do some manipulation in the URL, like say, if I want to hide the navigation pane, okay, if I want to hide the filter pane, those all things can be accomplished. Now if you see this URL, it is bit different than what we have seen a couple of slides back, right? Now here it says https app.powerbi.com report embed, and then it asks for report ID, and then it asks for CTID. Okay, now if you see this uh, screen over here, uh, the syntax is basically app.powerbi.com slash report embed ID. Report ID is XXX and auth ID is true and CT ID is YYY. Now XXX and YYY needs to be replaced with some dynamic content. We can append nav content pane enabled as a query string and mark it as false, and filter pane enabled and mark it as false, so that it will hide the navigation pane and the filter pane. And then eventually the final URL will look something like this. And if you fill in the XXX and YYY as a dynamic content, then you will be able to hide the navigation pane and filter pane. So there are three approaches. This is the third one, using an iframe. the first one which I showed you was about reports, and second one was about dashboard. So let's see this in action. So I have this Power BI site. Okay. Now here in Power BI, if I navigate to my workspace, okay, I have a lot of workspace. So if I go into one of the workspace, so COE is one of the workspace. And here, if I go to say report, this is the report, okay? Pulse dashboard. I just named it as dashboard, but it's a report. Now, when I open this report, I see a lot of things, okay? I see a group ID, okay? I see a report ID. So let's do one thing. Let's copy this group ID from here and put it in a notepad. And I'll call it as group ID. Then I will copy the report ID. This is my report ID. And if I navigate to the dashboard, so if I go into the workspace again, COE workspace, and here, this is one of the dashboard, like say DB1. Okay, so if I open this dashboard, I can see the group ID. Now, if you see the group ID for this dashboard, as it belongs to the same workspace, is same. Okay, it's 37 and ending with 56. 37 ending with 56. So we need not copy the group ID, but yes, the dashboard ID we need it. So if I copy this, and I'll call this as dashboard ID. Now we have got enough information to render our report. Okay, so we can go ahead and do that. Now, before we even go to generating a report, let's generate that query string, or let's generate that liquid syntax over here itself. So, how do you write a liquid syntax? Is you put curly brace, you put a percentage sign, you put a percentage sign, and a curly brace. So, opening and closing. Okay, here we will say Power BI because you want to embed a Power BI report or a dashboard. Now, authentication underscore type colon. The options are either you put AAD or you put Power BI embedded. Okay, so in my case, I'll just put AAD, Azure Active Directory Authentication. Okay, and then I will need to have put a path. Okay, now the path is very simple. You just put the double quotes over here, and then in this path, you will type in HTTPS colon slash slash app dot powerbi.com. Okay, slash groups slash, I'll just put xxx slash reports slash yyyy slash report section. So this is the syntax to render a report. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll just copy this. Okay, I'll just copy this and then put it here. Now for reports, the syntax is almost similar, like everything is similar, same, but here instead of reports you will say dashboards. So the keyword is basically dashboards, and here it is not a dash report ID, but it is dashboard ID. And I have an optional parameter called a style ID colon PPP. Okay, but I'm not going to put tile ID. Okay, I'll just keep it as it is. Okay, so this is the syntax for dashboard. Now let's fill this. Okay, so group ID. Let me copy the group ID from here. So see, if you see this first one, this we are using it for reports, and this one we are using it for dashboards. Okay, so let me copy this group ID and put it over here. And the report ID will go here. And the dashboard ID will go here, insert, insert. Okay, so now we have formed the URL. We have formed the liquid code basically. And let me remove all the white spaces and let's try this out in the Power Pages side. So I'll just move this window over here. Uh, This is a simple Power Pages site. First thing first, what we are going to do, we are going to create a report. Okay, so I'll call it a 01 report. Okay, and click on add. It's a blank page. Now remember, we are not going by clicking here Power BI, selecting that component. What we are going to do, we are going to use a liquid code. So in order to add liquid code, you need to go into edit code, and then it will open Visual Studio Code in the backend. So now what I'm going to do is I'll just close this Copilot Power Pages. I'll copy this div and paste it over here. And this div I'm going to operate on. Like here, I'm going to add that liquid code. Now remember the liquid code which we provisioned over here. Now if you closely watch over here, Power BI authentication type, here you need to put a double quotes. Okay? And remove any spaces, additional spaces between the attributes. So it's all looks good to me. What I'm gonna do, I'll just copy this entire liquid code. Once I copy this, what I'm gonna do, I'll just say right click and say format document so I can see this liquid code properly, and I'll remove additional spaces. Okay, so looks good to me. Uh, I will save this record, Control S, and I'll close the Copilot. I'll synchronize the changes and try to preview the report. Now, if you are not logged into the system, it will prompt you for authenticating. And now here it's throwing me some error. It says tag was not properly terminated. So let me troubleshoot this. It says percentage Power BI authentication type AAD path, and looks good to me. Let me remove this space and go to the end report section, put a space, and then try to format it this way. Percent Power BI authentication type AAD path, and all good. Just save this. So Control S to save, and we'll synchronize the changes. So whenever you write a liquid code, there might be some sort of space which gets embedded in between. Like if that's the case, then it may start throwing an error. So you may need to troubleshoot that accordingly. So that's why it's always wise to double check your liquid code, because sometimes it can be very cryptic. Let me preview this report. Now if you see, this report is getting rendered. Okay. uh, so this report we have rendered using just a liquid code, just by forming the url, crafting the url, and then rendering those report. Now as you see over here, you can see various pages within the report, and you can also see the filters. Okay, so this is how you can embed the report using liquid code. Now next step, let's create another page called as 02 dashboard. Now we are going to embed the dashboard. Okay, again the same step. We have already created the syntax in our notepad. So if you see here, Power BI authentication underscore type. Now let's put it in double quotes, and this is the path. And let me remove the additional spaces, and I think we are good with this. Okay, so I'll just copy this dashboard, and I'll go to edit code, open Visual Studio Code, and now we are adding the liquid code for rendering the dashboard in the Power Pages site. Okay, so the same step, what we can do is again copy paste this, but before I copy paste, I'll just paste my liquid code here, and I'll just copy this, paste this, and then I'll put a break, and I'll copy this again. So that's the liquid code for our dashboard. Double check if the syntax is correct. Looks good to me, but let's save this and test it. Control S to save. Go back to Power Pages, synchronize the changes, and preview desktop. Now here, as you see, it is trying to embed the dashboard. Now this is the dashboard which we have created. Uh, to be embedded in the report. Now we can embed reports, we can embed dashboard, we can embed dashboard tiles, we can embed dashboard or reports pages. Now here the advantage of this part is here you will not see the navigation, right, and the filter pane. So if you have that requirement, you can do that. However, that is not possible in the report. That's why we have rendered using the dashboard, and you can hide all the navigation and the filter pane. Now, what if you want to render a report like this report, the one which we have rendered just now, 01 report, but at the same time hide the navigation as well? Okay, so can we do that? Let's try out. Okay, now you saw in dashboard you just pin one page into the dashboard, and then you can render those dashboard. But this is a report. Here you will see all the navigation part. Now what if I want to render the report but then at the same time hide this? Okay, now for that, what you need to do is go into the Power BI and go to your report and file, embed report, and website or portal. Okay, now here, if you see, you get an iframe, right? Copy this iframe. Okay, so I'm copying this iframe and I'm pasting this iframe here. Okay, so this is the iframe code. Okay, now we are not going to copy this entire iframe. Okay, we can do that iframe. I'll show you the iframe as well. Okay, so let me copy this iframe and create a page 03 iframe, add, and here I'm not going to use the iframe control from here. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just see if I can embed this in the Visual Studio Code itself. Okay, let me close this VS Code. So what we have done, we have went into our report, copied the iframe tag completely, and now we have created one page, and we'll try to paste that iframe code uh, in VS Code. Okay, so here, uh, okay, the same step. I'll just copy this, I'll just paste this, and then, oops, here I'll just paste the iframe code which we copied. Okay, and save this. So we are just pasting the iframe tag, and let's see whether it allows us to do that or not. Syncing the changes and then previewing the page. So it will ask me to sign into the report. And as you see over here, now we have rendered the report using the iframe tag. However, it still has the navigation and the filter pane. Okay. Now let's do another approach whereby I will add in another frame page and call it as 4, and I'll call it as iframe 2. Okay. Add it. And remember, from here, we can also copy the link. Okay, rather than copying the iframe content, just copy the link. Okay, close this, go here, and now here I'll go and add an iframe link. Okay, iframe control rather, and I'll copy the embed URL and I'll just paste this. Okay, so this is the fourth approach, but the second take on iframe. Okay, synchronize the changes and preview the page. So as you see over here, it is rendering the report. Okay, and now it is rendered the report using iframe URL. Okay, so we have two approach. One is we can either copy the iframe tag itself, the HTML tag, which we did for here, and then we can also copy just the URL and then put it in iframe 2. Okay, now let's take one step ahead. Okay, and then create another page. I'll call it as 05 iframe hide nav and filter pane. Okay, so if I add this page, now let's do one thing. Let's again paste the URL which we copied from Power BI dashboard. So from here, what we did, we went to file, we went to embed report, uh, and there was website or portal, and we copied this URL, right? So we'll go to the notepad, and here I'll copy this URL. And at the same time, what I'm going to do, I'm going to append the query string. So this is my query string, ampersand nav content pane enabled equal to false. Okay, so what it will do, it will hide the navigation bar by providing those query string, and also filter pane. So I need to hide the filter pane as well. So for that as well, you can do those. You can add those URL, which will allow you to filter pane content. Okay. Now here, just before even crafting this URL, I'll show you how it works in Power BI. So here, if I just copy this URL and I will say ampersand nav content pane enabled equal to false. Okay, ampersand filter pane enabled equal to false. Okay, let me copy this and I'll just and put an enter. Now here, if you see, if I've just rendered this URL and added to query string, then it will render a report in Power BI by hiding the navigation pane and the filter pane. Okay, so same thing we want to achieve over here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go into our notepad and then I'll just paste this. Okay, and nav content pane enabled equal to false and filter pane enabled equal to false. I'll just copy this URL and I'll try to now uh, either I can use an iframe here, So let me use an iframe here. Paste this content, and now click on OK, and I'll synchronize the changes, and I'll preview the record. So here you can see we have embedded an iframe. We have modified the query string, which has hidden the navigation content pane as well as the filter pane. So this is how you basically render your report if you want to hide the navigation and the filter pane, right? So just to summarize, what we have done is we have rendered the report, the first report using liquid code. Then we rendered the dashboard using the liquid code. Then we rendered the iframe using iframe tag. Then we rendered the iframe but using the iframe component in Power Pages. And in the fifth one, we have used the iframe component in Power Pages, but we have appended the query string, which will allow us to hide the navigation content pane and the filter pane. So that's it, folks. This is how you basically use liquid code to render Power BI report and dashboard in Power Pages site. Thanks for watching.